the ovary. And so we start out with our little primordial cells, right? So there are two phases happening. You have your ovarian cycle, right? And then you have your uterine cycle. So the ovarian cycle is very similar to spermatogenesis. We're producing our gametes, right? And then our uterine cycle is we're getting ready for a baby. So simultaneously, two things are happening in the female's body system, right? Where we're getting ready to build a new organ, we're getting ready to possibly carry a baby, and we're producing gametes all at the same time. So there's a lot happening. So there's a tremendous amount of communication that's occurring simultaneously, okay? So before birth, before you are even born, right, our immature eggs, well, our stem cells already produce tons and tons of these what's called primordial oocytes, right, or primary oocytes. And so these guys have already gone through all of the mitosis. So in males, mitosis happens as it's needed, right? So as more sperm is needed, mitosis will occur and will produce lots and lots of sperm, right? But that won't happen until puberty, whereas in females, this has already happened. Mitosis, all these little primordial cells have already been produced, and meiosis 1 has been produced before they are even born. So they're ready. And it stays in a suspended state, okay? So all of this happens before birth. So that would be, I'm just gonna do, a black marker here. I'm gonna write this as the primordial, I'm just gonna put PO, primordial oocyte, okay? Now, once a girl hits puberty, so around 11 or so years old, sometimes earlier, sometimes later, but that's about the average, then we enter into, so this would be known as our first menarche, we enter into our menstrual cycle, right? And so the first stage is developing these little follicles. So follicles, just like the follicles in our hair, they help to support the growth, right? So you produce all these little follicle cells, right? So that's the first step. So this would be the follicular phase. So the follicle, so I would say primary follicle, okay? Oops, should be L, no, LP. I was right the first time. And so this occurs because our brain, right, so I gotta get my brain in here. So here's my brain with the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. Okay, that's my version of a brain, okay? So the hypothalamus secretes GnRH. Okay, so this is my hypothalamus is right here, okay? Secretes GnRH. So once that time occurs in a female's life, so that puberty, GnRH is going to start increasing. And then the GnRH will tell our pituitary gland, I'll just call it PIT for short, to start releasing FSH. So, follicular stimulating hormone. It stimulates the follicles to start developing, okay? All right, so this is known as the follicular phase. And basically, it's going to promote the follicular development, right? And it gets bigger and bigger, and you get more follicles, right? We get our secondary oocyte. You get the picture there, right? Okay. So that would be my secondary. I'll just write second degree F for follicles, okay? All right, so the next stage, okay, is now pituitary gland is also going to secrete some LH as well. Okay? And that's going to help that process along. Now what that is going to do, it'll actually, so this will stimulate the growth. So the FSH stimulates follicular development. The LH is going to encourage those follicles to begin producing estrogen, all right? So we begin producing estrogen. I don't know how dark, it probably wasn't very dark. Let me grab another marker. Okay, so I'll write estrogen. Okay, so that's basically what LH is doing, is it's stimulating, it's helping the development of that follicle, okay, and it causes the follicle to produce estrogen, which is the female hormone. Now that estrogen is going to be received by the endometrial lining, and it's going to cause the endometrial lining to start engorging with blood. So we're going to start putting some blood, we're going to add more of this endometrial wall, okay? So we've got our ovarian cycle, and then shortly after the follicular phase, or during the follicular phase, the uterine phase is starting to happen, so almost simultaneously, okay? All right, so as this is happening with the increase or burst in this estrogen, that's going to get, that's going to signal our pituitary is like, oh, okay, we have more estrogen. That means we're just about ready, right? Our uterus is just about ready to receive an egg. So the pituitary is like, okay, more estrogen, that means we're just about ready. So what ends up happening is the pituitary, so let me do this way. So I'll do 1, 2, right? And then 3, okay? As a result of this, it causes the pituitary to send like a serious burst or surge, it's called usually a surge, of that LH. So it sends a lot of LH, it just like skyrockets, okay? So this would be my step 4, right? That increase or that surge in LH will cause the follicles, right? So now we have all these follicles. Now, it's not necessarily moving, it's just that I don't have enough space on the ovary to show this in one place, right? So we end up causing our follicle to merge with the membrane of the ovary and basically cause the ovary to rupture, releasing that little oocyte, okay? Or ovum at this point, okay? So it ruptures, and that's known as ovulation. Okay, so we now have ovulation. So a surge in LH causes ovulation, okay? All right, so our egg will travel into the fallopian tube, and then somewhere around this little curvature, right, it's known as the isthmus area, okay? So here's our egg. And you're going to be learning more about this with the gestation, so I'm not going to do too much right now. I just want to kind of prep you a little bit for it. So right around here, this is where sperm needs to fertilize the egg. And if it doesn't happen here, then a pregnancy won't happen, okay? Anyway, so let's talk about continuing to get ready for that pregnancy. So, all right. So this is all known as the follicular phase of the ovarian cycle. Okay, we have ovulation, right? I should probably throw in some dates because dates were pretty important in the lessons as well. See, I've got another color I can use. I'll try pink. Let's see. So this would be day, I would say day 0. So the follicular phase is day 0 to day, I don't know, up to day 14. So I'm just going to kind of lump all of this together. Like all of this follicular development takes about 14 days, okay? Ovulation occurs on the 14th day, okay? And then the rest of the time, right around here, this window is like day 14 to day maybe 20 might be pushing it, okay? So you've got like a small window of opportunity to get fertilized, okay? All right, so we've got our follicular phase is day 0 to 14, ovulation at day 14, and then we're gonna have what's called the luteal phase. Now the luteal phase is what happens after ovulation, right? Because of the LH, which stands for luteinizing hormone, it causes or it brings about what's known as the luteal phase. And basically all these little follicle cells that are left over inside of the ovary, they create a new kind of cell, right? So the LH is going to stimulate our the remaining follicles to become what's called a corpus luteum, right? So it's the corpus means body, it's Latin for body. Luteum, so it's a body due to the luteinizing hormone, okay? So now we're in the luteal phase. So once we have that corpus luteum, it's gonna start secreting a hormone. It secretes this hormone called progesterone. Progesterone, okay? So the progesterone, along with the estrogen, we're still going to release some estrogen, is going to really cause a huge engorgement of blood. So right around day 14 after ovulation, maybe within this small window, your uterus is really starting to become full of blood, right? So that's where the cramping, the discomfort, the bloating, all of that is happening during this phase because of the progesterone, bump in progesterone and that estrogen, okay? So now this is known as our uterine. So it's the beginnings of the uterine phase. The uterine phase, remember, begins somewhere right around day, I want to say like day 7-ish is about when it starts. If we think of like the 24-day cycle, okay? So somewhere around day 7 is when we're starting to become engorged with blood, all right? All of this right here is happening during this window, that day 14 to 20, right? Now, if and only if we actually have a pregnancy, will we have some more communication, okay? So we need to let the ovaries know whether or not we have a baby that has been implanted, okay? So my suggestion, I'm gonna back away, and Kennedy, if you wanna take a screenshot of the screen right now, I'm gonna erase some stuff because it's a little too messy right now, so I'm gonna get rid of some things. Okay. All right. Are you all set? I'm sorry. Okay. All right. I'm going to get rid of some stuff because it's way too much. Okay. So I'm going to get rid of all of this. So all of the follicular phase of the ovarian cycle I've gotten rid of. Okay. Let's draw this. Now, make it a little bit neater. Okay, so we've got from the corpus luteum, we've got our progesterone. From our follicles, we have estrogen, which are all bringing more blood to that area, right? Okay, so from here, I'm going to talk about if we have a baby, okay? So if we have a baby, right, so we have our cells are going to start to divide, right? So we've got a collection of cells. That baby would implant itself into all of those nutrients, right, from the blood, and the baby would secrete its own hormone. So the hormone that the baby produces is called HCG. Right, HCG. Again, this is more gestation, but I just want to kind of a little like teaser for gestation for this week, okay? So if there's a baby, HCG will be secreted, basically saying, hey, I'm here, right? And that will tell the corpus luteum to keep bringing blood to, or keep secreting the progesterone so that the progesterone will tell the uterus to keep including more nutrients for baby, okay? Now, if there is no baby, right, we're gonna complete our cycle. So let's say we have no baby involved, all right? So no baby, no fertilization, didn't happen, all right? So blood, da, 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 da. All right, so there's no baby, so now we're at, if implantation does not occur by like day 20, right? So no fertilization by day 20. This starts to, our corpus luteum doesn't hear from the baby, right? There's no there's no HCG being heard by our corpus luteum. Then that corpus luteum starts to turn into a scar tissue, okay? Almost like if you were to have like a scar from a cut, it sort of looks like that, okay? And so as a result, right, it starts decreasing the amount of progesterone because there's less corpus luteum. If there's no progesterone, right, no more progesterone, obviously this will start to fade too, right? So progesterone is the primary thing, right? No more progesterone, then we're going to stop bringing blood. There's going to be no more blood supply to the endometrium, and as a result, it starts to break down, right? So all of the connective tissue that's holding that massive amount of bloody tissue starts to break down, and once it detaches from the actual wall of the uterus, then gravity does its job, and then we have what's known as a period, right, or menstruation, okay? So that would complete the uterine cycle, which would be the menstruation. So we have, so the uterine phase, the uterine cycle is, starts somewhere around day 7 with communication from our estrogen, continues with the bump in the progesterone, which increases our the lining of the endometrium, okay? So we have this buildup of nutrients, and then we finally have the last part of it, which is the sloughing of the uterine lining, okay? So that completes the uterine phase. So all of this, the completion of the uterine phase is at day 28, and then we start again at day 0, and then we repeat this cycle again, okay? All right, so there's a lot of overlapping in the cycles, but we're just, for the female reproductive system, we're primarily focusing on that for the cycles, all right? So let's see if we can do a quick recap. So we have the ovarian, day 0 to 7-ish, day 7 to 14, day 14, and then I'll make that 13, so 14, 15 to 20, and then 21 to 28, okay? So the ovarian cycle has the follicular phase, okay, followed by the ovulation, followed by the luteal phase, okay? That's where the corpus luteum develops, and then basically degeneration. So, well, it depends. If we're pregnant, then we continue. If we're not pregnant, then we stop producing that, right? So that kind of like goes into there, all right? So we got those 3 phases. And then and the hormones involved would be GnRH, which causes the release of FSH and LH, and then more LH causes ovulation, okay, and which results in progesterone being released during which causes progesterone getting released. Okay, so that is our ovarian cycle. And then the uterine cycle, all right, we have so it starts somewhere right around here where we have estrogen, technically from the ovaries. I'm going to write estrogen from the ovaries. We'll start the endometrial lining, right? So endometrium starts to engorge with blood, okay? The LH, well, the progesterone really has what's called a proliferation, okay? And then we have the last part, if there's no pregnancy, then we have menstruation. And sometimes you'll hear the term sloughing, so getting rid of that lining, okay? All right, and so that's what's driving it, okay? Everything is coming essentially from the ovaries. So the ovarian hormones prepare the uterus, and the hypothalamus and the pituitary hormones prepare the ovaries, right? So it's brain talks to ovaries, and ovaries talk to the uterus. And if there is a baby, baby talks to ovaries so that the ovaries can continue talking to the uterus. Okay? All right. Oh, hey guys, I've got a bunch of you on here. Excellent. You just joined me on a quick little review session of the female reproductive system. I'm just kind of wrapping it up. Give me just a minute. All right, so